Self-driving cars. This presentation will dwell on the technology of self-driving cars and treat it as one of the keystones of modern technology. The following points will be covered: history of self-driving cars, impact of self-driving cars, social impact, cultural impact, political impact, economic and environmental impact, ethical considerations, and conclusion. History of self-driving cars. The very first experiments intended to develop and test driverless cars were conducted way back in the 1920s. Since then, an abundant number of companies joined the competition. At present, the development of self-driving cars became one of the most important concerns of researchers from all around the globe. Surprisingly, in spite of the popularity of this topic and its wide-ranging history, the inventors did not come up with a picture-perfect driverless vehicle yet. 1920s and 1930s. Houdino Radio Control invented one of the first driverless cars in 1925. It was a demonstration of the first radio-controlled car. The test drive took place in New York. The car featured an antenna that caught radio impulses coming from the second car that followed the driverless vehicle in thick traffic. The idea was that the signals were able to preserve the program of the vehicle by monitoring small electrical engines. A bit later, in 1932, this technology was also sent to Fredericksburg so as to elicit interest in car dealers and sell the driverless vehicle technology to other people. 1960s. 30 years later, the project regarding driverless cars was reinitiated, and Ohio State University played a major role in the expansion of this mission. The perception of driverless cars was that the cars should be activated and controlled by distinct microelectric devices. The mission was going to take roughly 2 decades. The project lead promised that the structure supporting driverless cars would be mounted on communal roads as well. So as to sustain the movement of driverless cars, the Bureau of Public Roads established an initiative regarding the development of a robotically maintained freeway. 4 states signed up for the erection of these expressways: California, New York, Massachusetts, and Ohio. One of the most well-known inventions of the 1960s was the Aeromobile 35B. The air-cushioned vehicle venture was projected to renovate the U.S. transportation system. 2000s. The beginning of the 21st century was emphasized by a number of developments announced by the U.S. government. They sponsored 3 military efforts, Demo 1, Demo 2, and Demo 3, intended to maintain the creation of a perfect driverless vehicle. The Demo 3, released in 2001, was able to self-drive many miles while dodging obstacles which could be met on a rigid off-road landscape. Another critical invention associated with the beginning of the 21st century was a real-time control system. It permitted the end user to manage specific vehicles and even sets of vehicles. This objective was achieved with the use of the hierarchical construction of the control system. During the first decade of the 21st century, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency introduced a project that obliged engineers working on robotics to create a driverless vehicle which could pass a sequence of stress tests completed on the grounds of the Mojave Desert. They offered $1 million to the succeeding team, but not a single team could finish the sequence. Presently, the situation looks categorically auspicious and self-driving cars may take over the marketplace. On the other hand, there's little chance that driverless vehicles will substitute traditional vehicles anytime soon. The development of self-driving car technology arranges rather leisurely, and we should not expect the end product, a fully purposeful and immaculate driverless car, before the 2030s. Analysis of impact. The impact of self-driving cars. Inventors present driverless cars as a future of automotive business where all traditional vehicles will be substituted with self-driving cars. The public perceives these cars as a chance to dispose of life-threatening responsibilities and spend their time more efficiently even when on the road. Interactions between people will not affect driving performance. However, these vehicles may eliminate human concentration altogether, and it may have grave consequences in the long run. Social impact. Self-driving cars are critically praised by society, and the views on this technology are bright. Society may see this modernization as rather beneficial, but there are several things that are allegedly dangerous. If one tries to draw parallels between Maslow's hierarchy of needs and driverless cars, they will discover that this technology faultlessly fits in the segment of psychological needs. The alleged drivers will accomplish their needs and have more time to pay attention to their families. On a minor scale, Driverless cars are envisioned to assist drivers in fulfilling their basic functional needs such as rest, nutrition, and warmth. One of the principal changes in society may be influenced by the implied commercial promotion of an idle lifestyle. The retort to the technology is mainly optimistic due to the fact that there are more benefits than shortcomings. Driverless cars are projected to help humans in terms of minimizing the number of accidents, such as head-on crashes and other lethal collisions. It's rather improbable that someone will be damaged by this technology. The expansion of self-driving car business creates more job opportunities for inventors, but may unfavorably impact other occupations, such as taxi or bus drivers. There is no link between driverless cars and crime or other aspects of social life. This human know-how will definitely affect interpersonal relationships in a good way when it's fully technologically advanced. Cultural impact. The cultural impact of self-driving cars is not as serious as its social inferences. If one takes the utilization of driverless cars across the world into consideration, the United States is the sole leader when it comes to research in the field of self-driving cars, development of groundbreaking methods, and evaluation of the present technologies. American researchers prudently explore the ways in which self-driving cars could be revolutionized even further. Celebrities that endorse the use of driverless cars are George Clooney, Cameron Diaz, Ben Affleck, and Tony Hawk. The cultural value that is promoted the most is the security of self-driving cars. Political impact. Currently, the government moderately supports the inventiveness connected to the expansion of driverless cars. On an intercontinental scale, the United States is involved in these procedures more than any other country. One of the most prominent decisions of the Supreme Court was the exposure of driverless cars on the streets of more than a few cities in California. Subsequently, Ohio and Texas also introduced the strategies that encouraged the use of driverless cars on the streets and highways. Despite the complicated background of this invention and major consequences connected to the security of this type of transportation, virtually no political participation is documented to this day. The most significant political pronouncements relating to driverless cars revolved around the security of these vehicles. Economic impact. The economic impact of self-driving vehicles is also conspicuous in terms of some aspects. Even though there are several beneficial aspects, such as reduced costs and incidence of innumerable accidents, there is a risk of automotive sphere depreciation. This means that many drivers in the taxi and trucking business may be left unemployed when driverless cars become almost flawless. This will have an earth-shattering influence on the country's economy and most likely minimize the economic output. On the other hand, the issue consists in the fact that the lack of knowledgeable developers that can sustain driverless car technology will stress the IT factor. Eventually, this may lead to a scenario where numerous drivers will lose their jobs with little hopes to find other valuable occupation. Before substituting traditional cars with self-driving cars, it should be important to take into account the present commercial inclinations. Google is the company that currently controls the rivalry, and it's expected that its opponents will slowly fall off or choose to work together with the IT tycoon. The investments include billions of dollars. The price of self-driving cars is anticipated to go down gradually as a result of the snowballing approval of this type of conveyance. The corporations that are funding research on driverless cars are driven by the enhancements that can be made in the area and view this as a systematic prospect. Environmental impact. The environmental impact of self-driving cars should be seen as an advantage owing to a number of details. To begin, driverless cars consume less energy and work on the basis of the supposed clean energy. Driverless cars also lessen the total number of greenhouse discharges by almost 25%. Nevertheless, the key effect on the environment will be made by the strategies developed by the government regarding the energy consumption and a sanctioned number of driverless automobiles. The environmental impact of self-driving cars should not be taken too lightly. The existing growth pace hints at the bright future of this technology, but society has to be vigilant when implementing driverless cars in real-life surroundings. Many social, political, and economic allegations may turn out to be serious complications in the future if the makers of driverless cars do not address them as soon as possible. Ethical considerations. Irrespective of the reputation of the technology, there are more than a few critical problems that have a significant effect on society and their attitude towards driverless vehicles. These fundamental issues revolve around the significance of the decision-making processes included in a driverless car. It is imperative to understand that there are scenarios where there is no accurate answer. Instead, These events develop into moral dilemmas that come down to situations where the car will assure the well-being of its commuters, but only under certain conditions. It is believed that the maneuvers made by self-driving cars enforce major hazards on all road users. Ethical considerations. Ethical considerations. Although these vehicles are methodically tested with the use of special mock-ups, it is likely that passengers may be put at risk. The risk can be explicated by the automatic choices made by self-driving cars, which sometimes are rather controversial. For example, a scenario when the car will take an action to risking one person's safety in the crash as an alternative to harming several people. The procedure of developing a fully self-sufficient vehicle that will be able to make moral decisions is one of the most high-pitched issues that are currently restricting the development of artificial intelligence and self-driving cars above all. Drivers' personal interests are not taken into consideration at this time. The remaining sets of rules have trouble following common human moral values. Researchers believe that driverless cars may be capable of reproducing human emotions in the future, but it's not promised yet. One of the most popular expectations is that the shift from personal cars to compound transportation structures will positively affect the security of road users. Independent technologies took over the big screen and works of fiction a long time ago. The existing scientific process shows that the ideas of screen directors and writers may become a certainty. Irrespective of that fact, the majority of people are skeptical about these technologies and their usefulness. Therefore, a conclusion may be drawn that the employment of self-driving cars may be an operative step for the business leaders and the government. These parties may also brush up the fundamental aspects of human contribution to the process of driving. The attitude of the public towards these vehicles and their consideration regarding this technology are two of the most impactful aspects of driverless cars development progress. The ultimate objective is to get involved in the process of development of self-driving cars as much as possible, because individually, we are the end users of this technology and the future of driverless cars depends on us.